is up? I'm Rick, the Fat Man GM. You may or may have not have heard of me mabbling and rambling on a few of the YouTube channels and Facebook channels regarding to our hobby, role-playing games in general, tabletop games, wargaming, so on, etc. I have started back when I was in my early teens. I have well over 40 years worth of experience in this hobby that we love and share. And a big part of what I like to do is go back and revisit a lot of the stuff that I have and have accumulated in my gaming career, if you will. And everything from MERP, Starfleet, from FASA, a slew of Dungeons and Dragons and Shadowrun, Star Wars, etc., etc., etc. And I revisit these items individually, and hopefully to give some nostalgia for myself, to give you a little bit of an insight into some game system that you may or may not have heard of or may have not had the opportunity to play, and to remind those of us out there that do have them that these are quite viable and still entertaining today. So, here we go. Alright, my friends, we are looking at the Mines of Selka from the FASA Corporation for Star Trek the role-playing game, circa late 80s, early 90s. I can never nail down the exact dates on some of these things because they put the copyrights for the Star Trek trademark at 89, 66, 60, 86, but the actual game supplement, I'm not sure. So this might be 1986. This is a role-playing module. An adventure for the use of Star Trek, the role-playing game. An adventure module, as you're familiar with how these things roll out. The Mines of Selka. And we got our plot synopsis, introduction. The Mines of Selka is designed for 4 to 10 characters aboard the Albert, a 14,000 metric ton exploration investigation vessel. Basically a Q ship. A lot of nice little tricky things worked into it. This scenario is intended to be played by the crew members of the Federation Starfleet personnel, although it may also employ Andorians or other alternatives as an elaborate in the Game Master's notes. The events take place near the Orion homeworld and colonies in the Rigel system. The adventure follows the activities of a team of Starfleet operatives assigned to investigate the disappearance of Federation merchant vessels, as well as some pleasure craft and neutral shipping in a region of space not far from the Orion homeworlds. Piracy, perhaps? The Albert is one of 5 computer projections have narrowed the field of inquiry to an area of space surrounding 3 systems, including Selka. The Albert is one of 5 search vessels assigned to investigate. The systems and all the ships were chosen for their sensor arrays. Whether or not to keep the mission clandestine is up to the team. An advantage is that the persons that agnostic to the Starfleet might be more willing to cooperate, but the disadvantage is that the appearance of Starfleet operatives might warn off those responsible for the recent ship losses. So we got our plot synopsis. New orders, Albert's called away from its investigation of Orion smuggling operations to basically figure out what's going on in the system. So the briefing, after this team, the Albert is on its own. Other ships will be in the area. The Albert's crew is assigned to the Selka system. Their mission is to inform Starfleet of any suspicious activities, investigate, and if possible, fix the problem. This mission is somewhat discouraging to the Albert's crew because they felt they were on the verge of breaking open their investigation of Orion activities. Some of the data may have gathered suggest more than just smuggling is occurring. Something to take in mind, there's a number of these supplements and adventure modules that are set in and around Orion space. So as a campaign goes, you could run these things in sequence if you chose to. So information that might have been uncovered or dealt with in the previous thing might carry over if you want to work them into the story, or to give the players a continuity of the what they're doing. So ideally, maybe they've changed vessels, maybe it's the same vessel. It's a matter of how you want to deal with it. Contents of the book. The adventure, setting the stage, patrolling in Orion space, the Albert's findings, leading up, the crew of the Albert itself, the briefing. different stuff in there. So we got the briefing here. The Selka system itself, High Rider's log. They said, gentlemen, your vessels been summoned here to new orders. As you know, the Federation has decided to demilitarize many of its border areas in order to decrease tensions in areas where expanding races such as the Orions or Romulans merge with those borders. The reason it would not be diplomatic to use ships of higher than destroyer class in some mission categories. Your ships have been gathered here to perform duties that may later prove to require vessels with differing capabilities, but until more data can be discovered, you must carry these out, these orders. Blah, blah, blah. So we got, like I said, the Selka system itself, High Rider's log. Albert's crew is now traveling towards Selka system, which is 8 parsecs from Starbase 27. Unless specified, the commanding officer will be on a normal watch routine. When the vessel is within 3 parsecs out system, a low power transmission comes in. A skill roll against the bridge officer's sensor technician or both reading communication systems will identify the signal as a damaged log marker buoy. The exact response to the signal is up to the player characters at the time. Review of the log shows it to be a vessel named High Rider. The computer check registers the vessel's 3,000-ton pleasure craft with a crew of 5 and passenger a complement of 4. Basically a space yacht. The High Rider was normally chartered by executives or wealthy persons. Further reviews, the case for the High Rider human crew was transporting 2 Andorian executives and their wives to Selka, and was uneventful until the High Rider reached the region where the Albert is now traveling. At that point, they made contact with an ore carrier that was heading in approximately the same direction. The ore carrier requested permission to approach High Rider to make use of his diagnostic computers. The High Rider agreed, ordered that Synopsis would be ready. It's because their own systems were were insufficient to care for an ill crewman. The dockings complete, the High Riders boarded by what appeared to be heavily armed Andorians. Before the bridge was captured, one of the bridge crew was able to secretly launch the log buoy. Approaching the colony, Selka was just the planetary city or capital that most of your adventure on the ground is going to be dealing with. Technically an asteroid, I think. Most of it's buried inside, and 3 firms, company owned, operated, largely operated Andorian colony. Mines are petered out. However, these industries were systematically closed down. The equipment still remains in various volumes unless there's a new strike. However, the doors to the plant will remain closed. As might be expected, this has led to a depression on the asteroid. Some of the colonists have left for other worlds, while others are nearly starving. Although there once existed a good relationship between the colonists and the 3 founding companies, there are now occasional riots resulting in destruction of equipment. Selka is divided into 8 underground volumes where the population lives and work. Each volume is connected by several others by 0G tunnels. Volumes vary from one to the next, somewhat like neighborhoods in a human city. Various volumes are subdivided into sections and compartments. This minimizes any damage if a compartment should suddenly lose pressure, etc., etc. It goes through the various volumes or districts, and some of them, some very poor and desperate people in here. Meeting with the chief of police, plea for help. While the members of the Albert are on shore leave enjoying their drinks at the first bar they found, a young human and female approaches their table. The girl introduces herself as Polly Taylor, the daughter of a prospector. Seems her father and 2 brothers were prospecting on a distant orbit some months ago and did not return on schedule. However, nor have they been heard from since. This is not unusual occurrence in the Selka system, but the girl has some evidence that makes her suspect her family may still be alive. A few weeks after the family ship was listed as lost, she happened to wander into an auction where a group of vessels were being put up for sale. Most of them had been repossessed by various banking firms, but Polly recognized one as her family's prospecting vessel. She was certain of it because the burn on the vessel's bow that she herself had caused 8 months back after accidentally discharging a mining laser. Fortunately, an auctioneering firm did not believe her, and they even showed her the ship's registry numbers, which did not match her family's ship. If the Albert's crew are not in Starfleet uniforms, Polly will offer them her entire savings as well as a souvenir chunk of gold that her brother gave her during one of their searches in return for her help. If, however, they are in uniform, she will break down and cry, describing how indifferent the police were toward her. What do you do in response to her pleas for the help is entirely up to the player characters. Counters and rumors, further investigations. So we've already got a ship missing, a young girl distressed their families. She thinks they're still alive, but the ship was stolen and sold. We know there's other stuff going on here, which is one of the reasons that the Federation sent the crew and the investigators in the first place. So we have some random patrol encounters. A Mayday received from an Orion bound to Secadrone has taken a severe hit on one of its shields, leaving it relatively unprotected in that quarter. Close to the Albert's position needs assistance of skilled engineers. Storm of micrometeorites strike Albert's deflector shields, etc., etc. We get Camp 1. The first mining camp the Albert reaches is Camp 1, the site of the original dilithium strike in Selka system. As the vein of dilithium is not yet totally exhausted, there is still some mining activity here. Survey suggests, however, that the mine will peter out in about 2 years, and some operations have already shut down. Camp 1 is nevertheless one of the busiest places in the system. The Lons strike, second oldest mining camp, second most distance. The human luck load. And we have an emergency. During its flight through the belt, the Albert has been taking many micrometeorite collisions on the deflector screens. The power fluctuations necessary for varying size and vectors. The meteorites approach have often come close to overloading some of the systems. The ship now needs some minor repairs and maintenance, making the repairs damage the Albert. Anomalous sensor readings, Orion presence. Harrelson's alternatives. Captain Harrelson, assuming that one of your players is not the captain of the ship. The Orion forces that are potentially available in the region. Yellow alert. Once Albert sends out crew some spacesuits for a fake rescue mission requested by the Orions, or once the crew of the Albert begins recognizing the situation is not what it seems, the Game Master should lay out the Starfleet field map. He'll place on it 2 Orion prospectors, a large asteroid from which the Orion reinforcements will come, with the exception of the Bolt, and 15 other asteroids. The mining asteroid will be only 10 hexes from the Albert, etc., etc. So let the combat commence. Battle among the asteroids. Enslaved. The Game Master may read the following paragraphs directly to the crew of the Albert after they have surrendered their ship. If any portion of the conflict in the current game situation, feel free to vary the account as needed. So either you've lost the battle or you purposely surrendered so you can get deeper into what's going on. And you're taken to the slave camp, and then you're introduced to the slave population. And the mines, the rep team's plan. The next several days, the crew members are kept hopping as they get adjusted to long work days in the mine. There are 13-hour shifts, 2 for each day. The player characters have been split up between 2 shifts so that communication between them is difficult for any length of time. Got to get creative. The Great Escape. Panic. High-speed chase. The outcome. Computer files. Investigating rumors. It's independent scouts. Lost rep team. The rep team roster will show 2 members listed on the indefinite leave of absence. These 2 are described in the cast of characters section. In a deep search for the mid-volume computer files will turn up their dossiers. They will also be listed in the files of the Albert, at least insofar as they were in Starfleet and retired to Selka. Or Haulers Limited, vessel serial numbers, space ghosts. So an obscure news media item will be a very slim chance of being found, but as a direct ancestor of children's game, the news item quotes a speech given to executive or Haulers Limited before the Colonial Council of Business. Man explained that the loss of prospectors was due to their unsafe vehicles, not to the existence of, quote, space ghosts. Ignoring his words and intent, the children in Sacrament caught up the idea of space ghosts and made a game of it. This is Dacarnite. It's a slave that the Orions use. So that's some information on it. And we got a section here for Orions and Andorians and Orions. So this is nice because at no other point up until this that I'm aware of did they ever come up with a, which is I think was a failure on FASA's part. They should have had a source book with all the major Federation races up to that point with all the stats and material you would need to create characters in them, which they did not do. They were kind of hit or miss on some of that stuff. So in this case, we have the Andorians and their physiology, sociology, a little bit of information. There's a section in the back that gives us more stuff for dealing with stats and creating them. And then there's another one here for the Orions. Now the Orions, we have an entire series of stuff for them, so we don't really need that material. Various vessels that can be encountered in the system. And then, of course, the Traverse, the class commercial freighter, quote type Q, it says it right there, and how it differs from the standard light freighter. Has extra shields, extra sensor capacity, and there's a couple of light phasers mounted and hidden on the ship. Give it some, and we got our cast of characters, which you'll find these pretty much in every FASA supplement for Star Trek. These can either be used as NPCs to flush out the crew for your group, or your players could just pick one of them and use them as their character template. Their backstories and so on and so forth. Some interesting characters. Miss Polly here. And we got timeline, random encounters in the various districts of the asteroid town or whatever the mining town or whatever you want to call it. Random rumors. Player group various. I guess I stand corrected. We do not have the stat stuff for the Andors. We just have a breakdown of their. Now here's the brief. Andors present themselves as full-fledged members of the Federation, just general information, socially, and Andors. So I stand corrected on it. So here we have the Mines of Selka.